Thank you for joining me, Stephen. How long have you been working in the sector for, and what's your current role at Scottish Futures Trust?
Hi, James. Thanks for asking me to do this. I've been fortunate enough to work in and around school buildings for about 25 years now. First of all, as an architect, then in design management with a tier one contractor. And for the last 7 years, I've been with Scottish Futures Trust. And at SFT, I lead the education team, and we work across early learning and childcare, free school meals infrastructure, primary schools, secondary schools. And then in the last couple of years, we've also been involved in ventilation, the COVID response, and most recently in issues around rack concrete. So a broad involvement across the learning estate. But the backbone of our work really is the learning estate investment program.
So if we'll come on to that program in a minute, but if we could just sort of focus a bit more on Scottish Futures Trust for those of the audience that might not necessarily know too much about it. Can you explain the crucial role that the organisation plays in delivering inspiring learning places in Scotland?
Sure. Well, as an organisation, we're not all about learning estate. We're actually involved in all sorts of infrastructure across Scotland, really wide range of skill sets. We've got people who are from legal, financial, technical backgrounds, all sorts of different skill sets from different sectors. But the crucial thing is that we work with government, we work with local authorities, we work with private sector designers and contractors, and we tend to work in the spaces around all of those groups to help the collaboration to deliver a really wide range of infrastructure, which, I mean, that involves all sorts of stuff like transition to net zero, digital connectivity. We've got a housing team. We're involved in electric vehicle charge networks, hydrogen. So all of those different infrastructure angles, as well as the one that we're talking about today, which is the learning estate.
Thank you. And you mentioned the kind of learning estate investment program earlier. Could you share with the audience the recent successes from that program, and I guess most importantly, the impact it's had on learners?
To wind back, I suppose, a little bit for those who don't know, the learning estate investment program, it's a collaborative program between central Scottish government and the local authorities, the 32 local authorities across Scotland. So it's a joint initiative, and the main drivers are to address the condition of the school estate, but also in areas where there's population growth to support the new infrastructure that's required to support that growth. So one of the things that we've done within the Learning Estate Investment Programme in that collaboration is to fundamentally change the way the infrastructure, the way the whole thing is funded. So we don't actually fund the infrastructure at all. We have a mechanism called outcomes-based funding, and what that does is Scottish Government supports the achievement of outcomes in use of the buildings, and the local authorities fund the actual infrastructure up front. And what that has done for us is that it's allowed us to focus on the life of the building rather than just getting doors open as construction projects. So some of the things that's allowed us to do is to look at the long-term condition of a building. So the local authorities, they only get that portion of the funding if the school can be evidenced to stay in condition A or B for 25 years. The same, we've introduced digital connectivity targets, so that again, if those are met, then the outcome gets funded. And possibly one of the most influential outcomes that we've been supporting is the move to reduce the energy consumption of schools, because obviously in the last 4 or 5 years particularly, there's been a huge focus on that area, because historically buildings don't necessarily perform in the way that those commissioning thought that they would. And we've been able to introduce, you asked about the learners, which is of course crucial. So they're going to be in good condition, well-connected buildings. The energy one is really important in that we also set environmental internal environmental standards. So the air quality is good. We all learned through COVID how important that was, but also the temperature is controlled in a way that makes it comfortable for learning and teaching. And we're doing all of that in as low an energy way as possible. And by having that, what we've really found is that it's really been a step change in the way that both clients, designers, contractors have thought about, firstly, the internal environment that's being created, but secondly, the amount of energy that's required to keep that environment comfortable for the life of the building. So I suppose that switch to focusing on outcomes rather than focusing on doors open has been the big game changer for us in terms of LEAP.
It's a fantastic program. It's been the bedrock of the kind of main conference program and themes for Learning Places Scotland over the last few years. And we'll come on to that event in a minute. But if I may, I'm going to ask you sort of about the, I guess, the landscape at the moment, kind of what you think the sort of the biggest challenges the education sector faces at the moment, and why those are.
Sure. I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges is undoubtedly the delivery of projects. I mean, as I've said, we've set some intentionally high ambitions for these projects. You know, they're really key parts of the public sector, really key environments for children and teachers to be in. So we've set high standards, challenging to the industry, and I think at the moment one of the biggest issues is actually getting them built, actually getting them on site at the right price that people can afford, councils can afford, and getting them actually delivered to the quality that is required. That is happening, but it's sometimes a little bit slower than we would have ideally liked. So that's probably one of the bigger challenges in terms of the pure infrastructure. In terms of the actual learning environments themselves, I think that one of the biggest challenges is we're getting a lot of feedback, not just in Scotland, but I think across the UK and Ireland, if not globally, about the sensory experiences of children and teachers and any other users of the buildings. And we're becoming more and more aware of the sensitivity of different people to different stimuli and how that can be either supportive or a barrier to the activities that they're trying to carry out. So I think that if you look at what those learning environments are for, that's one of the big challenges going forward, is to try and get the environment right for as many different users as possible, which is a big challenge because lots of different people have different divergent requirements. So I think that's something that we will be focusing on more and more heavily going forward.
And on the flip side, sort of what are the kind of the biggest opportunities then that the sector faces or has, and why?
I think opportunity-wise, I mean, this is maybe one of those things where, you know, every cloud's got a silver lining. There's a lot of pressure on finance. There's a lot of pressure on the public sector to make best use of the assets that it's got. And I think, you know, a school is often both the people and the actual physical buildings are often at the heart of a community, whether it's a rural community, an urban community, it doesn't matter. The school, as the building and the people, are often the heart of that community. So, and what we're looking at increasingly, it's always been a theme, certainly in Scotland, but the multi-use of those facilities has always been a key driver in what we do, and we've seen some good examples of that. But I think going forward, there's an opportunity there to build more efficient delivery of public service, which is important. But almost more important, I think, is what it can do to the strengthening and the resilience of the communities themselves by having the adults and the older kids perhaps in the community more involved across different age groups, maybe intergenerational activities and so on, to actually use the building, the place, as a catalyst for stronger, more resilient and more efficient communities going forward. So I think that's a big opportunity, and we're really looking forward to pushing that, sharing some examples where we're seeing it working well, sharing some of the issues, the challenges that brings, but really pushing that agenda forward.
The theme for this year's Learning Places Scotland Conference and Exhibition, which takes place at the SEC on the 19th and 20th of October, is maximising opportunities across the learning estate. And Stephen, can you let the audience know why this theme has been chosen this year and why it's such an important topic for Scotland's learning estate?
I think this question follows on quite nicely from what we were just discussing in the last one, about making best use of what we've got in the learning estate, and bringing in the community. That's one of the aspects of it. But there's also other aspects in terms of making use of existing buildings and how they can contribute going forward. Obviously, not everything can be a new school. That wouldn't be the right thing to do at all. And we want to look at how, in the conference, how both the physical estate, the finances of running the estate, the educational opportunities of what you can do with it within and between the spaces, what you can do by bringing perhaps other industry partners into the school buildings themselves, perhaps bringing in FE, HE partners in to deliver courses within a school, how you really get the most out of the opportunities of what's already there. And as I said, socially as well, where you're mixing the school community with the community beyond its fence. So all of those aspects, I think, feed into maximising the opportunities across the learning state, and we're really looking forward, as we do every year with the conference. It's always a great place to collaborate, to share ideas, and we're looking forward to unpacking some of those themes in the conference again this year.
And can you, something I've asked every sort of episode of this so far, is can you sort of share something about yourself that the audience may not already know about you?
Am I allowed to say no, James? Am I allowed to just refuse that one? That's not really in the spirit of it, and other people have responded to that, so I'll go along with it as well. One thing I really enjoy is sailing, which is ordinary enough, I suppose. But linked to that, the bit that you might not know is that I'm also a big fan of the shipping forecast. So the weird kind of list that you hear on the radio about north at Sierra, south at Sierra, 40s, etc. I'm a big fan of the shipping forecast, to the extent that I actually learnt all 31 sea regions in order, and whenever I can't sleep at night, I go through them all in order to help me to get to sleep. So that is my thing that you probably didn't know about me.
Wow, no, thank you for sharing that. And you've got a lovely view from your office as well, or home as well, haven't you? Because I think a few years ago when we were on a call, you had to take a break to see a swordfish, I think it was, swim by.
That is very true. Yeah, that was one of the COVID highlights. It was well remembered.
Oh no, so thank you for sharing that. Now, my next conversation is with Jonathan Jones, Director at Mac Construction Consultants. What question would you like me to ask Jonathan during our conversation?
I think that what would be really interesting is looking at the expertise, the breadth of expertise that they have as a company. The sectors, I think, work quite differently. They're good often at different things. There are strengths and weaknesses within each of the sectors of construction industry. Some are faster, some are good at controlling costs, etc., etc. So I suppose my question would be, what sector experience would be best brought over to the learning estate to improve the delivery of the learning estate? So what can we learn from other sectors to really influence a better delivery of learning estate?
I'll put that question to Jonathan shortly. So no, thank you so much for your time, Stephen. As always, it's been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to welcoming you to Education States in October, and also seeing you at the Learning Places Scotland event in November, 19th and 20th of November. If you haven't been, come to Scotland. It's a cracking event, and we look forward to seeing you later in the year.
Thanks very much, James.